A guy just bought a car for $1 million, and the insurance alone costs $50,000 per year. Another person bought a car for $100,000, and someone else got one for $1,000 that broke down in 7 days. What I discovered about these 3 cars will blow your mind. You're telling me someone pays more for insurance than most people earn in a year. That's insane. But here's what nobody tells you. The cheapest car might actually cost you more than the expensive one. Wait, what? That sounds impossible, but I'll prove it to you right now. Meet Marcus, regular guy from Ohio, who saved up $1,000 and bought a 2001 Honda Civic off Craigslist. With 200,000 miles on it, the seller said it runs great. Marcus drove it home feeling proud, but day 7 the engine light came on. Day 14 it won't start, and he's already spent $800 on repairs. That's almost what he paid for the car. Now meet Jennifer, who the same week in the same city walks into an Audi dealership and drops $100,000 on an R8. She gets in and presses a button, and the car lifts itself off the ground with air suspension. The seats actually cool themselves in summer, not heated, but cooled, while Marcus is pouring water into his radiator. Jennifer's car is literally reading her mind. But that's not even the crazy part, because then there's Victor, who just bought a McLaren W1 for $1.2 million. This car has 1,275 horsepower and goes from 0 to 200 kilometers per hour in 5.8 seconds. That's faster than you can say this sentence out loud. The engine uses Formula One technology, actual F1 racing tech, in a street-legal car that screams at 9,000 RPM. Here's where it gets really wild. Victor's insurance costs $50,000 every year, while Marcus pays $1,200 and Jennifer pays $4,000, but Victor's insurance costs more than what Marcus paid for his entire car times 50. And that's just to insure it, not even drive it. And let me show you something that'll make your brain explode. Marcus's $1,000 Honda needs new brakes for $400, new tires for $300, oil change for $70, and the transmission is acting weird, which could be $2,000 to fix. In 6 months, Marcus has spent almost $3,000 total, when he only bought the car for $1,000. Do the math, because that's 3 times what he paid. Jennifer's $100,000 Audi comes with a maintenance package included for 3 years with free oil changes and free tire rotation and free inspections. The car tells her when something needs attention by sending an alert to her phone. She drives to the dealer, and they fix it, and she pays nothing for 3 years. But Victor's McLaren W1 has annual maintenance costs of $30,000 just for maintenance, not repairs or crashes, but just normal upkeep. Because an oil change for a McLaren costs $8,000, since there's only one certified mechanic in the entire United States who can touch it. Are you starting to see the pattern here? Marcus thought he was being smart by spending less money and saving cash, but his $1,000 car is a money pit, where every week something breaks and every month brings another repair. Within a year, he'll spend 5 times what he paid, and the car is still a piece of junk. Jennifer spent 100 times more than Marcus, but everything's covered with no surprises and no random breakdowns. She presses the start button, and it starts every single time. Victor spent $1 million, where his insurance alone could buy 20 Honda Civics, and his annual maintenance could buy a brand new luxury sedan. But here's the thing, nobody tells you about million-dollar cars. They're not just cars, but investments. The Pagani Codalunga cost $7.4 million, with only 5 ever made that sold out before the public even knew they existed. And people who bought them already made money, because these cars appreciate and go up in value. Marcus's Honda lost 50% of its value the moment he bought it, and it's worth $500 now, while Jennifer's Audi will lose 50% of its value in 4 years, making her $100,000 car worth $50,000. But Victor's McLaren W1 is limited production, with only a few hundred ever made. So in 10 years it might be worth $2 million when he paid $1.2 million. That's the secret nobody tells you. But wait until you see what happens when these 3 people try to drive their cars, because what I'm about to show you is so ridiculous, you won't believe it's real. So Marcus gets his Honda fixed finally after spending $800 on new brake pads and a new battery using used parts from a junkyard. The mechanic said good luck, which should have been his first warning. He gets on the highway, and immediately something feels wrong because the car's shaking and vibrating at 60 miles per hour. He thinks maybe it's the tires, so he takes it to a tire shop where they tell him the wheels are bent and replacement costs $600. Marcus doesn't have $600, so he drives it anyway. The shaking gets worse, and now the steering wheel is wobbling. His friends won't ride with him anymore because they say it feels like the car's going to fall apart. They're not wrong. Meanwhile, Jennifer's living in a different universe where her Audi R8 has something called Quattro all-wheel drive that's computer-controlled and adjusts power to each wheel 1,000 times per second. She hits a wet road, but the car doesn't slip because it grips. The computer figured it out before her brain even processed the danger. She's driving to work with traffic ahead that she doesn't notice, but the car does with adaptive cruise control, using sensors in the front bumper, so the car slows itself down automatically without her even touching the brake. Marcus has to pump his brakes 3 times to get them to work, while Jennifer's car is basically driving itself. But here's where things get completely insane. Victor takes his McLaren W1 to a track day with special event for millionaires and their hypercars. He's nervous because this is a $1 million machine. And what if he crashes it? The insurance company already told him that any track use means 0 coverage. So if he wrecks this car, he's paying out of pocket with $1 million just gone. He gets in anyway and starts the engine, which sounds unreal. Not a rumble, but a scream, as the V8 revs to 9,000 RPM, which is race car territory since most normal cars max out at 6,000. He puts his foot down, and 0 to 60 happens in 2.7 seconds, where his head slams back into the seat. The G-force is crushing his chest like a fighter jet, taking off, while the Formula One hybrid system kicks in with electric motors, adding instant power. The car launches forward like it's been shot from a cannon. Marcus's Honda takes 14 seconds to hit 60, while Victor's McLaren does it in 2.7. That's 5 times faster. But speed isn't even the craziest difference, because it's actually the feel. Marcus sits on cloth seats from 2001 that are stained and smell weird with compressed foam from 2 decades of use. There's a spring poking through the driver's side, so he puts a towel over it. Jennifer sits on diamond-stitched leather that's heated in winter and cooled in summer with 12-way power adjustment and memory settings. The seat remembers her exact position and adjusts automatically with lumbar support and side bolsters and thigh extension. It's like sitting in a massage chair that goes 200 miles per hour. Victor's McLaren seat is carbon fiber custom, molded to his body that weighs almost nothing but holds him like a glove, because at the speeds this car reaches, you need support, since the lateral G-forces in corners would throw you around without it. Here's something that'll blow your mind. Victor's McLaren needs an oil change every year that costs $8,000 because of special synthetic oil requiring specific tools and 8 hours of labor, with only certified McLaren technicians who can do it. Marcus does his own oil changes using cheap oil from Walmart for $20 total in 30 minutes using a wrench and a bucket. But here's the plot twist. Marcus's cheap oil changes are destroying his engine with wrong viscosity and wrong additives, making his engine wear out faster. So in 2 years, he'll need a new engine that costs more than the car is worth. Victor's $8,000 oil changes are protecting his investment, where that engine will last decades and the car will outlive him while being worth more in the future. Jennifer doesn't think about oil changes because the car tells her when it needs service. She drives to the dealer where they do everything, and she doesn't pay because it's covered. 3 people with 3 cars creating 3 completely different experiences. But what happens when something goes really wrong and there's an actual emergency? What I'm about to tell you is the main twist you never saw coming. It's 2 in the morning, and Marcus is driving home from a night shift on a dark road in the middle of nowhere when his engine starts making a clicking sound, then grinding, then bang. The car dies and just stops, so he coasts to the shoulder. He tries to restart it, but nothing happens because the engine is dead. He's 40 miles from home in freezing weather with no cell service. His $1,000 Honda just became a 1,000-pound paperweight. This is the reality of cheap cars nobody talks about. They don't just cost less, but they fail more. So Marcus is stuck on a dark road at 2 a.m. because he tried to save money. The tow truck alone will cost $300, and the new engine costs $3,000, which is more than he paid for the car. He sits in the cold car waiting for dawn with time to think and calculate and realize total spent so far is $1,000 for the car plus $800 in initial repairs plus $600 for wheels he never bought plus $300 for the tow plus $3,000 for the engine. That's $5,700. He could have bought a good used car for that amount. But here's where the story gets even crazier. Same night, Jennifer's driving her Audi home in a different city, at the same time doing 80 on the highway when a deer jumps out right in front of her that she doesn't even see. But the car does see it, with pre-sense collision detection using infrared cameras and radar sensors. The car sees the deer before she does, and slams on the brakes automatically with full force, while the seatbelt tightens and hazard lights flash. She misses the deer by 3 feet with her heart pounding and hands shaking, but she's alive and unhurt because the car saved her life. Marcus's Honda doesn't have collision detection or radar and barely has working brakes, so if a deer jumped in front of him, he's hitting it, and at 60 miles per hour, that deer is coming through the windshield. The difference between these cars isn't just comfort, but actual survival. But Victor is dealing with a completely different problem. He's driving his McLaren W1 through Monaco, showing off and having fun. He parks it outside a restaurant and goes inside for dinner. He comes back out to find a crowd of people taking pictures and touching the car with some guy leaning on it. Victor freaks out because that's $1 million car where the paint alone cost $50,000 with special color and 7 coats hand-applied. If that guy scratched it, the repair could cost $10,000. This is the curse of hypercar ownership. You can't park anywhere and you can't leave it alone because people treat it like a museum piece. They touch it and lean on it and take selfies with it, while some people get angry seeing it and key it out of jealousy. Victor hired a full-time security guard just to watch his car, who costs $4,000 a month, which is $48,000 a year, just to make sure nobody vandalizes his car. Add that to the $50,000 for insurance, and $30,000 for maintenance, and $20,000 for storage in a climate-controlled garage. Total annual cost is $148,000, which is more than what most people earn in a year. Marcus is spending $5,000 a year keeping his Honda barely alive, while Jennifer is spending $4,000 on insurance and $0 on maintenance. But Victor is spending $148,000 just to own his car. But here's the insane part nobody expects Marcus. His car is worth nothing now. Because with a blown engine, it is scrap metal worth maybe $500. If he's lucky, he lost everything. Jennifer's Audi already lost $40,000 in value since she paid $100,000, and 1 year later it's worth $60,000. She lost $40,000 just from owning it. But Victor's McLaren W1 sold out immediately with limited production, where only 338 will ever be made. People are already offering him $2 million for it when he paid $1.2 million. He's up $800,000 after owning it for 6 months. That's the real difference between these price points. Cheap cars cost you everything. Luxury cars cost you money. But hypercars make you money. But the final twist about the real cost of these cars is something nobody talks about. And when I tell you what it is, your mind will explode. Marcus is standing at a bus stop because his Honda is gone after being sold for scrap where he got $600. Total loss is $5,100 that's just gone and vanished. He's taking the bus to work now for 2 hours each way, which is 4 hours a day and 20 hours a week and 80 hours a month. At his job, he makes $20 an hour. So 4 hours a day wasted commuting means $80 a day he's not earning. Times 20 working days a month equals $1,600. Lost. The cheap car didn't just cost him $5,000, but it cost him his time and his opportunities and his life. This is what poverty does. It makes you spend money to save money and then you lose everything anyway. Jennifer learned something different because her Audi lost $40,000 in 1 year, which hurt, but she still has a working car and she still gets to work on time with independence and freedom. The depreciation stings, but here's what she realizes. That $40,000 is the cost of reliability and safety and not being stranded at 2 a.m. on a dark road. She could have bought a cheaper car and saved $60,000, but then she'd be Marcus sitting at a bus stop missing opportunities. The luxury car didn't appreciate, but it didn't destroy her life either. It just cost money that she could afford. Victor's situation is completely different because he spent $1.2 million on his McLaren W1 and spent $148,000 in the first year maintaining it. Total investment is $1.35 million. Current value is $2.1 million, so he's up $750,000 in 1 year. But it gets even more insane. He's using the car as collateral for loans, where banks will lend him money against the car is value he borrowed $1 million at low interest and used that money to invest in real estate, where he made $300,000 on the deal. The car isn't just an investment, but a business tool that's making him money while sitting in his garage. Marcus's Honda made him poorer, while Jennifer's Audi kept her stable, and Victor's McLaren made him richer. Here's the brutal truth about cars at different price points. Cheap cars trap you because they break and cost money and waste your time. You think you're saving money, but you're actually losing everything since the repairs never stop, and the problems never end until eventually the car dies and you start over broke again. Mid-range luxury cars are tools that get you places reliably and keep you safe and cost money, but they're worth it. The depreciation is the price of stability, and not being stranded and having one less thing to worry about. Hypercars are investments that appreciate and open doors and signal status where banks lend against them and people notice you and opportunities appear. The car makes money instead of costing it. But here's the final twist that changes everything. It's not really about the cars because it never was. It's about understanding value versus cost. Marcus bought the cheapest car, but it had the highest cost in money and time and opportunities and peace of mind. The low price was an illusion. Jennifer bought an expensive car, but it had fair value, delivering reliability and safety and convenience. She paid for what she got. Victor bought the most expensive car, but it had negative cost because it literally made him money. The price was irrelevant because the return was higher. This principle applies to everything in life. Cheap tools that break immediately, cheap clothes that fall apart, cheap food that makes you sick, cheap education that leads nowhere. You're not saving money, but losing it. Quality costs more up front, but it delivers value over time because it works when you need it and doesn't betray you. It's worth the price. Premium assets appreciate because they're not expenses but investments that compound and open doors and create opportunities that didn't exist before. Marcus is taking the bus while Jennifer is driving to her promotion interview, and Victor is signing a $2 million business deal that happened because someone noticed his car. The difference between $1,000 and $100,000 and $1 million isn't about the cars, but about understanding that cheap is expensive and expensive is fair and premium pays for itself, and that's the truth nobody tells you.